Turn heads and bring the hype with a custom hype chain from Lotwin. Perfect for youth sports, fantasy football, or just flexing your pride. Go to Lotwin.com, use the promo code TCCPOD for 10% off your order. That's Lotwin.com, promo code TCCPOD for 10% off. Get your custom hype chain and get hype with Lotwin. What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for March 3rd, 2026. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a feel-good Friday edition of the podcast. Let's get into it. First, Flyers missed a golden opportunity last night. They had Tyson Forrester back, but they could not get it done, losing to the Red Wings 4-2. Fortunately for the Flyers, though, they didn't lose any ground in the standings. They're still 2 points back, but the road just got a little bit tougher. 7 games left. They're all must win. They're all important at this point. But the crowd was electric. So I really hope they get in. Flyers playoff hockey is second to none. I mean, I've been to NFC Championship games, been to World Series games, playoff games, and nothing tops the atmosphere for a Flyers playoff game, even all the way up in the upper levels. And the crowd was absolutely electric last night. Refs left a lot to be desired. One ref told Porter Martone, I feel like I want to call him Porter Martone, but it's Porter Martone. But the ref essentially, you could see it if you could read lips, told him to shut the F up when he was questioning him. So no respect for the young kid. So obviously that's something he's going to have to earn. But big game tonight up in New York to take on the Islanders. And then they're back home tomorrow to take on the Bruins. So 2 very, very big games for the Flyers, who missed a golden opportunity. But I like the core of this young team. The future is bright. And obviously, like I said, playoff hockey is outstanding. So looking forward to hopefully some playoff hockey. All right, speaking of playoffs, Sixers currently are locked into that 6th seed thanks to the tiebreaker over Toronto. They have 6 games left, and that 6-game sprint starts tonight. Timberwolves down at Xfinity Mobile Arena. There's been really no changes to the standings. So as many wins of the next 6 as they can get. I think if they go 3-3, roughly, they should be able to lock in that 6th seed. They can somehow pull off 4-2. They could sniff the 5. And I guess at that point, it all depends on whether you want to play the Knicks or Cleveland. So got to win, though. Cannot go less than 500 over these last 6 games, I think. Hopefully, Joe will be back tonight. He was sick. There was a lot of speculation that Daryl Morey and the Sixers were not happy with him missing the video session, and then they ruled him out early. Maybe he was legitimately sick. Maybe Joe was trolling us on Twitter saying they won't let me play. With Joe, you never know. But it starts tonight. Timberwolves, Sixers down at Xfinity Mobile Arena. Then they go out to Detroit on Saturday to take on the Pistons. Huge measuring stick game. So they need to win tonight. I'm telling you, they can't go less than 3-3 to get that 6th seed. And then once they get into the play-in, it's kind of like, who cares at that point? But good weekend for our winter sports teams. Hopefully we come back Monday and the standings are treating us well. Phillies out in Colorado this afternoon, 4:10, their home opener for the Rockies, looking to keep the momentum rolling. Aaron Nola on the mound, and then you got Jesus Luzardo tomorrow and Taiwan on Sunday. And the good news is this weekend anyway, the games are fairly early. They got 4 today. I think tomorrow night's game is at 8, and then another 4 o'clock game on Sunday. And then, of course, they go to San Francisco, all late games, West Coast. Hate West Coast games. Not sure if I told you that before or not, but I hate West Coast games. Union in action tomorrow down in Charlotte, still looking for their first MLS win. Is tomorrow the day? Still plenty of time for them to turn it around, but sheesh. And then the big story yesterday with the Eagles, a day after Tim McManus's article came out, Jeff McLean released an article that essentially said the Eagles are not looking to extend Jalen Hurts, basically because of all of the things that were talked about in McManus's article. And again, a lot of feedback on that, and it's very interesting to me because there's really two camps in this. You have the pro Jalen people who are like, it's a smear campaign, a hit piece, blah, 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 blah. And they're not seeing the reality that, you know what, is a lot of truth to that. I mean, obviously with 12 sources, there's truth to it, but those are things we already knew. There's things that we've seen. There are things that I feel going into this season need to change anyway. And then you have the other side, which no matter what, they're like, yeah, get him out of here, blah, 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 the anti-Jalen. And it's like there's no in-between, and I'm in the in-between. I respect what Jalen's done. I think he's a hell of a player. Does he need to adapt and kind of practice what he preaches about wanting to get better and doing whatever it takes for the team to win? Absolutely. That means playing under center. That means motions. That means whatever, going over the middle. Means listening to your coaches, maybe not audibling out of plays and getting out of your comfort zone and get comfortable being uncomfortable. But it also doesn't take away the fact that dude has that gene that when the lights are the brightest, he plays the best. So I think we're somewhere in the middle. And I agree not giving him the extension because at this point, and one thing Howie and the Eagles have shown, they're not afraid to move on if they feel they can improve the team and take a step back to take two steps forward. And I think this is a huge year for Jalen because after this year, it's not as difficult to get rid of him with that contract. So I would not, especially, I mean, if all of this stuff coming out of the building is, I don't know if it's from coaches, I don't know if it's from players, it's anonymous sources, but I would have to imagine it's a combo of both. The pressure's on him, and show us what you got. Let's see what you can do. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that because there is still 2-3 years left on his current deal. I mean, I would love from a stability standpoint to have Jalen be here for the next 5 to 8 years. But if it's going to be more the same and it's not going to help the team, okay, let's see what we got. You know what I mean? So there's no need to rush into it. So I don't know why it was like a huge story. Like, oh no, they're not giving him. There's no need to. And I do think it's a pivotal year. I think for Jalen, Nick Sirianni, and the Eagles in general, because without knowing what Vic Fangio is going to do, likely going to be retired, I think we're going to be at a crossroads here. But to say Jalen needs to get out of town is absolutely absurd. And to say that Jalen is perfect and doesn't do anything wrong is equally absurd. So let's be there in the middle. I know Eagles are king. I know it's 24/7, 365 with the Eagles. But, I mean, both of the articles, I think, now, the timing of it, maybe the Eagles were feeding McManus the information to kind of light a fire under Jalen. I don't have a problem with that. I didn't have a problem with what Dave Dombrowski said about Bryce Harper. So if this is the kind of way, the personality, Bryce is a little bit different of a personality than Jalen. Jalen responds to this stuff. Jalen won't come out in a press conference and go on podcasts and say, oh, well, I guess I'm not elite, this, that, and the other. Jalen will just say, you know what? It starts with me, and I got to do better. So I firmly believe that Jalen's going to come out and excel and eventually get that contract. But I don't have any problem with it if the Eagles are leaking it. But I don't necessarily think it's a huge story other than it's confirming what we already know. And with McLean's article about the contract extension, yeah, why would you extend him right now? Especially with some of the other extensions you might have to give out. Wait and see how this year plays out. They're one thing the Eagles are, they're not super reactionary. They're not super frivolous with their money. They're going to do what makes the most sense. So to me, Right on, Howie. Right on. All right. Yesterday's trivia question. I asked, what is the record for most people at a basketball game in Pennsylvania? That would be 21,490. And that happened in January. The unrivaled 3-on-3 women's event drew that many people, breaking the previous record, which was Sixers Bulls 1998. It was Michael Jordan's last time in Philly as a member of the Bulls. And then before that, it was the 2000, or I forget. No, I think I have my dates and everything a little off. But we talked about the record yesterday for the NCAA tournament. I know that broke the record from Jordan. So I had just flipped them. But unrivaled in January, the 3-on-3 women's is the largest crowd ever at a basketball game in Pennsylvania. Some quick housekeeping notes. Be sure to follow me on all social media platforms at Philly Jimbo. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mont. If you haven't already, go check out the new Brotherly Birds breakdown. Hopefully within the next week or so, I may have some news regarding some things I'm working on with the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame. Working on some things today. So looking forward to that. And of course, good luck to both Dawn Staley and Gino Auriemma as South Carolina takes on UConn tonight for the Final Four and a spot in the championship. 2 Philly connections there. So depending on which way you want to go, that's who you should be rooting for. All due respect and love for Gino, I'll be rooting for Temple and Dawn Staley. This Day in Philly Sports History is proud to be a part of the Clashing Conferences Sports Fan Network, where passionate fans make powerful content. Check out theclashingconferences.com and join the squad today. All right, April 3rd. First, we're going to go back to 1987. And on this day in 1987, the Sixers traveled to New Jersey to take on the Nets. The Nets honored Dr. J with a 40-minute pregame ceremony. Dr. J was on his retirement tour, so every city for the last time he went to, they honored him, gave him gifts and all that. But this was very special for Dr. J, who, even though he started off with Virginia in the ABA, made his name really with the Nets, and ultimately when he was traded to the Sixers, helped the Nets get in the NBA. So the Nets were honoring him. They retired his number 32 with the Nets up in the rafters. They showered him with gifts. It was a very emotional thing. He won 3 straight MVPs with the Nets. So for the game, though, the emotion carried over, and it was tough to overcome as Dr. J went 2 for 12, scoring 6 points, his worst output of that final season, and really kind of hampered his chances to get the 30,000 combined points. Nets did win it 113-109. Charles Barkley added 26 points, but said after the game, these ceremonies get the other teams pumped up, and it's hard for us sometimes to focus with the retirement tour. And again, this one was very extra emotional since Dr. J actually played for the Nets. But Nets beat the Sixers on Dr. J's retirement night in New Jersey, 113-109. Barkley added 21, saying, it was tough. It was tough. Fast forward to 2004. Phillies lose to Cleveland in the on-deck series exhibition game. Now, this is important because it was the first baseball game ever played at Citizens Bank Park, of course, unofficially. So everybody talks about Bobby Abreu hitting the first home run at Citizens Bank Park officially, but Jim Thome homered in this game, hitting the first unofficial home run at Citizens Bank Park. But they were able to work out some of the quirks in this stadium. I know at first, which if the team is winning, it's great. But the Phillies bullpen was the top one, the visitors, and then they realized that, no, this is not good. We can't have our own fans yelling at our own team. So they did switch it by the time the regular season started. 2 years later, the Phillies give up 8 runs in the 4th inning at Citizens Bank Park, all of them off of John Lieber as they lose to the Cardinals 13-5 on opening day at the bank. Pat Burrell and Ryan Howard homer. Chase Utley goes 3 for 5 with 2 doubles. Jimmy Rollins hit a double to extend his hitting streak to 37 games. It dated back to the previous 36 games of the previous season. He would get a hit the next day, but that winning streak would end at 38, which to date is still the longest in Phillies history. And that leads us into today's trivia question. Always like to give you a weekend homework assignment. So, Jimmy Rollins' 38-game hitting streak is the tops in Phillies history. Well, who has and how many games are the next 4 longest hitting streaks in Phillies history? So Rollins is first with 38. How do the next 4 play out? 267-495-8531. That's the Back to the Future voice and text line. Get that, anything else Phillies sports related off your chest. Lots to talk about in Phillies sports. Or you can hit me up on the Discord channel, which is in the description. Come over, talk some Phillies. A lot of times recently during Sixers, Flyers, and Phillies games, there's a chat in there that we've been going back and forth, talking about the team and whatnot. It's a good, safe space for Philly sports talk without the hot takes that you get on the radio. And then 5 years later, in 2011, Phillies beat the Astros 7-3. Ryan Howard went 3 for 5 with a homer, a double, and 4 RBI. Ben Francisco homered, Placido Polanco 2 doubles. But the story was Roy Oswalt. His first start against his former team went 6 innings, struck out 6, 2 earned runs, got the win as the Phillies beat the Astros 7-3, sweeping them to open the season. And it was the first 3-game sweep by the Phillies to open the season at home since 1899. So a long time in between opening sweeps for the Phils. Now, that's just at home. On the road, they've done it. 1993, they swept, I believe it was the Astros again, to open the season there. But Phillies sweep the Astros to open the season at Citizens Bank Park. They also set an attendance record for opening weekend. 136,243 people went in, and that sweep of the Astros sort of set the tone for that team going on to win 102 games. All right, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. And in Philly, first impressions last forever, sometimes good, sometimes bad, sometimes ugly. This month, we're going to take a look at some of those first impressions that fall into all 3 categories. And in honor of a big weekend for the Sixers, we're going to take a look at Joel Embiid, who is the poster child for the process. He is the process. Sat out his first 2 years, so not a very good first impression. I know there were times where we didn't think we were ever going to see him play, but when he did finally get on the court, man, how exciting were the early days of Joel Embiid when they were learning how to play together and everything. We held our breaths for 2 years, and then once we finally saw him on the court, it was outstanding, winning MVPs, scoring titles, not getting us to the promised land, but still one of the best players to ever play the game for the Sixers. You can make the argument, there are some out here, just like with Jalen Hurts, that the impression is still mixed. But there, for a period of time there, from probably like 2017 to really going past the bubble, 2021, the Hawks series, even with Harden, that Celtics series, the Knicks series, it's fun. It's fun. And yes, it hasn't ended where we want. Injuries have cut his playing time and career short in the playoffs. But man, what a player. Not a good first impression, though, as he sat out his first 2 years. And honestly, in 10, 15, 20 years, we'll look back and we will appreciate what we had with Joel. Most of us will anyway. I know there's some people who are just going to hate him no matter what. But Joel Embiid's today's first impression, not a good first impression, but thankfully we were wrong. And like I said, I mean, that team was so much fun for like a 5 to 8 year window from 2017 to really 2023, 2024. Hopefully, with a healthier, more well-rested Joe, we can make some noise this playoff run.
It's time for Fridays with AI, where we ask AI to rewrite Philly sports history. Every Friday only on This Day in Philly Sports History.
That's right, it is Friday. Time for Fridays with AI, brought to you by Philly Goat. Go to phillygoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. And today, been seeing a lot of things on my social media talking about the different generations and how their personalities and how they root for sports. It's been an interesting sort of couple weeks with that. So I wanted to take a deeper dive into that and explore the generations and who their defining athletes were and see how that fits into any of the stereotypes and personalities and things like that. So we'll start with the boomers, who are kind of that earn everything, respect is not given, you earn it, blah, 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 blah. I feel like I'm talking to my dad. But Steve Carlton, kind of their defining athlete. He was quiet, dominant, professional. A lot of boomers will talk about how great Wilt was. He showed up, did his job, had a little bit of swagger. There is sort of the era of boomers with the hippies and people like that who have a little swagger. Wilt, talk to any boomer, they'll tell you how great Wilt is. There's a few of them in my family that will tell you how great Wilt is. Love you guys. But then we move on to Gen X. Gen X is tough, skeptical, emotionally guarded. Their defining athletes, Dr. J, he was calm with greatness. He was a champion, style without the arrogance, just kind of rose above the chaos and did what he was supposed to do. Could have been cocky. He's definitely flashy, but just went out and did his job. And I think that's a good description of Gen X. And also Mike Schmidt, who was always criticized despite being excellent and just kind of was like, whatever. Spoke his mind, went out, hit 30 home runs, knocked in 100 runs, won a Gold Glove every year. And he was one of those guys we appreciate it more as time goes on. Then you have the Zennials, which is where I kind of classify myself, sort of that in between. I have a lot of Gen X tendencies, but also growing up in the early parts of the millennials, kind of get the best of both worlds, I guess, or the worst of both worlds, however you want to do it. It's really that generation, 77 through like 83. It's like a micro generation, they call it. Caught in the middle, but our defining athletes, Randall Cunningham, revolutionary, exciting. He carried those imperfect teams, made impossible plays seem normal, and he was a dual threat, kind of like Zennials. They can fit in and talk with the Gen X people, but also can fit in and talk with millennials. Randall perfectly sums up that generation. And then Charles Barkley, again, kind of one of those cross-generation kind of guys. He was brutally honest. He's funny. He's flawed. He's authentic. You know what you're going to get with him, but all he does is go out there and do his job. Might not like what he says, but a lot of times he speaks the truth. And then we got the millennials. Everybody knows about millennials. Grew up with internet, cell phones, technology, all that other stuff. But to their credit, they get ripped a lot, but they remain steadfast in their beliefs and their convictions. AI is their defining athlete. He never changed, despite all the criticism. You should do this, you should do that, wear this, don't wear that. Just did what he had to do, played hurt, didn't complain about it. Larger than the game, just kind of went about his business. But never publicly wavered, despite being ripped all the time for his off-the-court activities, his on-the-court play, the cornrows, the tattoos, all of it. Just remained consistent and went out and did his job. And then Chase Utley, who AI put Chase Utley on there, but to me, Chase Utley is kind of the anti-millennial athlete. But millennials are drawn to him due to the connection with their parents. And I think that's a perfect thing. He's one of those guys who just didn't say a lot, went out, did his job, got dirty, went out, had a beer afterwards. And I think that's why millennials are drawn to Chase Utley, because it was a way to kind of bridge that gap with their older or younger baby boomer parents and older Gen X parents. And then you got Gen Z, the 97 through 2012 people. Jason Kelsey, he's elite but approachable, emotional but tough, funny but serious. And of course, Bryce, who embraces the pressure, is not afraid to be passive aggressive and get his point across that way. Wants to have the responsibility, but when he gets the responsibility, complains about it. I think that sums up that generation perfectly. And then Gen Alpha, had to put them in there because my kids fit into this one. And they're all about the star players right now. Saquon, Jalen, Kyle Schwarber, Tyrese Maxey, even Bryce to a certain extent. They're just getting into the sports room. So who knows where they're going to end up. But what are your thoughts on this? I think AI did it very well, identifying the athletes in Philly who define those generations. I question Utley, but I think it has to do with the connection with their parents. But what are your thoughts? Let's have some fun with that on a Feel Good Friday. 267-495-8531. That's the Back to the Future voice and text line. As you're sitting at Easter or Passover dinner this weekend, get it out. Call me, leave me a message, tell me I'm an idiot, all that good stuff. I love that. I love it. All right. But, excuse me, on this day in 2011, Phil's complete a 3-game sweep of the Astros. Roy Oswalt gets the start against his former team and shuts them down for 6 innings. 2006, Jimmy Rollins extended his hitting streak to 37 games, but John Lieber gives up 8 runs to the Cardinals in the 4th inning as the Phillies lose 13-5 on opening day. First official game, unofficial game, the on-deck series in 2004, Phillies lose to Cleveland, but Jim Thome hits a homer against his former team. And then 1987, Sixers lose to the Nets after the Nets do a 40-minute pregame ceremony to honor Dr. J in his last game ever in New Jersey. We got a big weekend of sports. You got the Final Four this weekend. The women's Final Four starts tonight. You got Sixers and Flyers with 2 big games as they look to continue their playoff push. Phillies should be able to take 2 out of 3, if not sweep the Rockies. Should. So we'll see what happens there. But a big Philly sports weekend. Enjoy it. Happy Easter and happy Passover to everybody out there who celebrates. Enjoy your time with your family. Hope you find all the eggs you want. But this has been This Day in Philly Sports History for April 3rd, 2026. My name is Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a feel-good Friday. And until next time, go Sixers, go Flyers, and I'll see you when I see you.